Stu Douglass. Today with us is Eric Shapiro, former scout in a way, not for NBA teams, but you work for SIS. You scouted, so you know the X's and O's. They hired you to look at basketball. So I love having your mind on the pod. I listened to you on the Pin Down podcast with Dylan Burkhart over at Hoops and listened to the last one and really want to pick your brain on this Michigan team because it's basically a whole new Michigan team. But first and foremost, Eric, I appreciate you coming on.
Yes, Stu, thanks for having me. I was actually at Michigan for most of your career, so obviously super familiar. I don't even think you knew that, but
No.
I mean, I remember I remember where I was when you hit probably the biggest shot of your career against Michigan State, which was I was 1 year younger than you in school, so I must have been a sophomore or a junior, and you were a senior. I can't remember exactly the years.
A junior. Yep, I was a junior. Yep.
Okay, so you're telling me that you were at Skeeps that night with us when we were celebrating after.
I very well may have been over a decade ago, so I can't remember for sure, but yeah, definitely a chance.
Yeah, that's fair. That's very fair.
Yeah.
To this day, my favorite college night, like, you know, when you're watching college movies in high school,
yeah,
you're like, man, college is crazy. And then you get there and like, you know, not woe is me, but especially as an athlete, you're like, I'm not going to frat parties all the time. I mean, some guys will, but like, you're not really supposed to. And then that moment, after that game, just like a culmination of like energy and hypeness and like getting back in time from a road game of all things, that was like my my college movie moment, and it was still
that night.
It still wasn't that crazy. I think I went home like pretty sober, so it wasn't that nuts. But yeah,
well, yeah. I mean, if I remember correctly, like that season was pretty up and down, like up to that point. Like it was kind of like not a great year, but that kind of turned the tide. I mean, with the whole program, really. But yeah, especially that year, because I know that was the year that made the tournament, beat Tennessee, I want to say, in the first round, then lost like a super close game to Duke, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that was like the turning point under Beeline, like that game, that shot. And I'm not just saying that because I'm on a podcast with you, but it really was.
The momentum.
So,
yeah. The momentum just kept going up and up and up from there. And
for sure.
To this day, I still get asked, were you on the 2013 Michigan team? It's like, nope, but very close. But, I'll take some credit for it. But yeah, I want to talk a lot of Michigan basketball with you. Obviously, it is new look. I mean, it's still so young, and you don't know what you're going to get. Minnesota was okay test, not super great. I mean, really not great at all, for being honest. I'm trying to be nice to Minnesota, but it had some good momentum, I think, especially for a guy like Doug, where all the question marks were coming at him. All the worry was coming at him. Is he going to be able to play? Do they have enough guards, for one? And I think he blew those expectations out of the water. But again, one sample size. So on the podcast, when you recorded with Dylan here this week, he mentioned you're a little bit of a skeptic and how he can translate like full season. So you answered a little bit, but I'm curious where you think, what positive things did you see from Doug where you're like, okay, this will work. Not only be fine, but like this will actually work and they'll win games.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, he was great in that Minnesota game. Yeah. Like by far his best game, and like he played by far the most minutes he'd played. I think like his best attribute is like his ball screen passing. Like he makes really good reads. He can manipulate like weak side defenders. Like he's a really good passer. And they were like blitzing the ball screen, right? Like pushing him back towards midcourt. And like he's small, obviously, right? Like he's like 5'8", 5'9". And it didn't really bother him, you know, and like they had a dude like a foot taller than him hedging out most of the game. So yeah, that was super impressive. And like, you know, he's fast too. So like pushing the pace, passing in transition, that sort of stuff. Like I think that suits his game well. So like at a baseline, I would like expect him to be good in like those regards. But I mean, he even finished more efficiently than he had. Like he was like around like 30% coming into the game shooting. And I think he went 3 for 3 from 3. I don't know if we should expect that like fully moving forward. Right. But I mean, he made 2 out of 3 on twos also. So yeah, it was definitely a really good game from him. And I guess my skepticism is just like based on what I saw in the other 8 games, like he was just erratic, you know, like he made some really good plays, but he had like careless turnovers and like defensively takes a lot of risks and stuff. But he could also pressure the ball. So like there's good and bad with him. But like he's a freshman, you know, like it's kind of to be expected. And like he wasn't supposed to be the starting point guard, right? Like they brought in this guy because they expected him to play the whole year. And obviously it's super unfortunate that he tore his ACL. But I mean, he's the only other point guard on the roster. So for better or worse, he's going to play a lot in like all these games. Yeah, what are you seeing from him though? Like, especially from like the first 8 games to this one, where like he played a lot more minutes, but he played super well.
I was super impressed with his balance. Like he ran the offense, but also attacked when I thought it was smart. He got to the rim when I thought it was smart. He passed when I thought it was smart. He shot the mid-range, shot the floater. Like he just made good decisions. And I've talked about it on the pod a million times. You know, Beeline, this is one of Beeline's favorite things to say about like how hard basketball is. And it's that Oscar Robertson, the Mr. Triple Double, said the hardest thing in basketball is to know when to pass or to shoot. And he was the king of it, right? And so if you can just constantly make right decisions, whether that ball is going in the basket or not, I think that's going to build momentum. And if you just play the right way, like that'll go a long way. But I like he was playing the right way while also being aggressive. Like he wasn't just timid or like, oh, the shot clock came down to him. It's 5 seconds. Now he's got to make a move and he hit shots. Like I don't think he was playing well because shots were going in. I think he was like actually playing well. And so that was what impressed me. But also like, you're like, all right, not really, because this kid seems super confident. He came in right away and you're like, he's the type of guy where you're like, you got to hold him back.
Yeah.
Like, you're like, all right, you got to stop doing this, which is good because I think even last year, and I'm curious on your thoughts with this, but last year they had a huge problem with all their talent about being aggressive and like finding their spots. And Jalen came in this year and was too tentative, I thought. And they needed, if you're going to run a ball screen, be a threat, dude. You got to be a threat. And I thought Doug was on all 3 levels: in the paint, at the basket, mid-range, and then from 3. And like, to me, that's the thing. Like, if you're going to play him, you know, if you got a scared point guard out there, oh, that's easy. We are eating you alive on defense. Like, we're just going to force that and force Doug to have it. And he's like, nah, I'm not going to be a weak link. So I thought that was cool to see.
Yeah, for sure. And to your point about him like picking the right spots, like in the other, like basically I think every other game this season, his usage, like the amount of possessions that he used was over 20%, right? So like when he was in the game, and oftentimes much higher than that, when he was in the game, he just felt like he had to like do a lot of shit, like basically. And part of that was he was playing with a lot of bench guys. So he was like the only shot creator and he had to do everything. But but by playing more minutes with the starters, right? Like he can fit in more and like find his flow within the game. And I think there is some like credence to that like by playing with better players, like he can pick his spots more and like, as you said, like know when to pass, know when to attack, like that sort of thing. So I definitely think it helps him like playing with the starters. I don't know if we should expect like that good of a performance regularly. Like I'd be shocked if he doesn't have like big ups and downs. Like he was pretty bad, to be honest, like before this game, but it's like it shows the level that he can get to, right? And that's like super promising.
I'm curious because these teams that Juwan has had have been interesting from kind of development standpoint. So I think if you were to look at like the decisions that they make early on in terms of how they want players to play and especially rotations, like I don't agree whatsoever with 4 guys off the bench at the whatever minute mark halfway through the third of the way through. I don't agree with it at all. But if you were to say, hey, we need these guys down the road, and I got a pretty good sense that we're going to make the tournament, you know, might not be at the best seed, but we'll do what we did last year and we'll figure it out at the end. Okay, I'll give you a little bit of a leash on that. But there was an aggressiveness. I'm coming back to the aggressiveness. Like, I think you're going to come back next game, even against Lipscomb, he might have like even 5 shots where you'd be like, all right, a little too aggressive. Like, bring it back, Doug. But I'm better with that than watching, you know, sorry, Caleb, but like watching a guy like Caleb last year come in and be like, oh, I don't know, pass the ball. I don't know, pass the ball. Like, I'd rather pull you back because at the end of the year, like now this team they got 2 guards really, and then Jet, and then like minimal backup for them at all. Yeah. So like they're going to have to do something eventually, you know? So why not? I don't know, make the mistakes for me, but I don't know what you see from an analytical standpoint. You're like, all right, well, this is also losing them games.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that like early in the year, the issue was like the backcourt, as you said, was being tentative, but they also just like weren't making shots. Like, like Jalen and Kobe, like were playing 30 minutes a game and they were like around 10 or 15% from three. Like
Yeah.
just simple numbers, like they just weren't making shots, and that's just limiting how good your offense can be. But like, I mean, Jet has been way better offensively than I would have expected, like coming to the year. Like he's really, really good. Yeah, I guess just like he's like a capital S shooter, right? Like he gets it off so quick. He organizes his feet so fast. Like he can get it off in like a lot of different situations, but also just like on the move passing. Like I've been really impressed with him offensively. So like I think this team has like upside offensively to be like a top like 10 or 15 team in the country. But it's really the defense that I think is going to hold them back. Like they just don't have that many good individual defenders. They're not that good of a rebounding team. They haven't been good in transition so far, and they haven't really played that many good like transition offenses yet. So like I'm concerned more with the defense moving forward than the offense. But I mean, like Hunter gives you a baseline. Like we haven't even mentioned him, right? Like he gives you a baseline of like you're going to be like at worst like a pretty good offense by having like an All-American dude like in the middle. It's just the pieces around him like growing as the year goes on, and you hopefully like incrementally get better with these guys who weren't playing in college at all or like limited minutes, right? With Kobe, with Jet, with Doug, and like they will get better as the year goes on, and that's probably the best case for like them improving and like making the tournament, like being better in Big Ten play. I think that's a good point.
I want to talk some more individual and some offense stuff, but yeah, defense is huge. I think they're improving, but they're just a little bit off. There was a possession, you mentioned transition defense. And there was a possession in particular. I think Kaysen hit a three, I think it was Kaysen Wallace hit a three in the first half. And I watched it back 3 or 4 times, and they all knew where they were supposed to be by the time they got to half court. And I was like, oh, this is good. And then they were just a foot away. Kobe was just checking on the other side of the court for like a split second too long. Boom, throw ahead to Kaysen and wide open three. You can't give a guy an inch. So I think they're like close. And then I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that. But on the rotational defense, just in general, that's where I'm worried about. It's a lot of like standing and not a lot of disrupting passing lanes. And then, you know, like, so they're getting like a lot of direct passes and then they're out of position a little bit. So, I mean, have you seen the half court defense improve at all from your standpoint?
Yeah, I think that they're better at like knowing the scouting report now and like knowing the other team's plays. I think they're like super well prepared in that type of stuff. Like that's just been like a staple under Juwan. They switch 1 through 4 a lot, right? So like they mess up switches like a decent amount. Like they switch off ball sometimes, but especially like on ball. But like yeah, the off ball switches, like I mean, you know, I don't know how vocal some of these guys are, but like Jet doesn't seem to me like a guy that's like yelling out switches and communicating that much on defense. And like Kobe, from where he was last year, he's gotten way, way better defensively. Like he was borderline like I don't like not playable really defensively last year, and he's so much better on that end. Like he's probably the best perimeter defender on the team at this point. And like I didn't expect that at all. So I mean that's definitely good. Yeah, the transition defense stuff, like I mean, you know this, like that can be improved, right? And you hope that like you have like your basic rules, and like you know there's teams in the Big Ten that are going to run like Michigan State always runs like that. They play North Carolina, right, in like a week or so, like Carolina break, they're famous for that. So they're going to get tests. You just hope, like the coaches obviously see it and they're going to drill it and try to, you know, be an area of focus to improve as the year goes on.
Yeah, you guys mentioned identity. Like, what is Michigan's identity? And I talked with Coach Sadie Washington a few weeks ago.
I'll listen to that pod.
Yeah, and I asked him about, I appreciate that. And I asked him about Monty Bates. And I, you know, jokingly like, hey, who's like talking about shutting down Monty? And he's like, well, he gave me like the coach speak and was, you know, very professional and said, well, we're coaching, we're trying to coach team defense and everybody, blah, blah. And I'm like, all right. And then watching the game and then Amani's going off. And it's like, we should have had a plan for Amani. And like, that's easy to say after the fact. But I think to their point, like, you know, got to give the coaches that credit. Like they're just trying to teach team defense at this point and have everyone grasp like rotations. And I think they're almost there. But you got a game plan for people. Like you can't play Iowa the same you do as Illinois. Like it's just, you're going to get killed and it's just not going to work out for you. So I'm interested to hear what you think about their identity. Like they're starting to play this zone and I'm going to give it a little more time. I don't love it. I'll give it a little more time, but do you see them trying to figure out like an identity, especially on ball screen defense or just in general? Because I think they're still kind of up in the air.
Yeah, I think that's like a really good question, especially defensively. Like, yeah, what is their identity? I mean, kind of under Juwan, they've always thrown the zone out, right? Like it used to
Yeah.
be at the beginning, maybe like a change up out of timeouts, right? Because, like in the timeout, the other team runs a play, it's for a man-to-man, just expecting it. Now it's like I would run you can call two plays, but like I would run a play for a zone because they come out of that zone more often than they come out in man-to-man, like after like, 12-minute timeout, 8-minute timeout, like that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't really like the zone much either. I feel like sometimes like the results are okay where like they miss, but it's like a wide open three, and it's like I don't want to chance that in like the long run, like them getting open shots like that. And like I mean, Doug's a small guard, he's got a lot of in that zone at the top of the zone to cover a lot of space. So yeah, I don't love it. Like as a changeup, I don't think it's going away, but I can't really see it becoming like their base defense, unless they just couldn't contain the ball for like such a long period of time that they felt like they had to. Because then you just have like a 7-1 dude in the paint all the time, and that's probably why they do it. But they do match up out of that, to be fair. So it's kind of like a zone that matches up like halfway down the clock. But yeah, ball screen wise, I don't really know what their identity is. Like Dickinson has like some mobility concerns, but like they've been playing him more like at the level, which is more aggressive ball screen coverage as opposed to like drop coverage where, he's like, 3 to 5 feet behind the level of the screen and kind of playing two between the roller and the ball handler. So yeah, I don't know if it's because they're still experimenting or it's just like matchup based, right? Where they're like picking coverages based on who they're playing and stuff. So I could go both ways on that, like whether they should stick with a set coverage or like be multiple and like have different coverages for different games or like situations and stuff like that. So it's early in the season, so I don't really know. But to your point about the identity stuff, like they're just not a very like physical defensive team. Like they're not really imposing their will in any sort of way defensively. And I don't know how that looks, but it's certainly like notable that they don't have like an identity on that end.
Yeah, it's kind of odd. And I'll chalk it up to youth because they tried to ice screens. I don't know what game, 7 or something, whatever it was.
They do it like almost every game at points. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was just going horribly. There was a couple possessions against Virginia. It was just really bad because there was no pressure from the ball handler defender. And then the big was just hands down. Like I've seen a lot of hands down.
Real quick, should we just jump in for anyone that doesn't know like what icing is, just so that you want to hit it?
No, you see, you're gonna be able to better explain it.
No, I mean you play. So it's basically trying to keep the ball on the sideline, right? Where the ball handler's defender doesn't let the guy with the ball get middle. You're essentially like forcing him towards the sideline, and then the big defender is also like either at the level of the screen or below it, trying to keep the ball on the sideline. Is at like high level, like what the goal of the coverage is. All right, go ahead. Sorry.
And I think they've tried to automate some of that stuff because to be honest, there's a few things. One, I don't think the communication from the bigs has been very great. Like either the guards aren't. Now there is an underlying theme here where there's a bunch of new guys, and you have to have confidence to play defense. Like it takes a lot of confidence for you to be mentally like calm enough to be focused in on your man while also listening to somebody behind you. It takes a lot of effort. You think it's easy to just open your ears. It's not. You'll block that out all day, every day. So you got to practice that. So that will come with time. But I don't know if it's that coupled with a lack of communication from the bigs, but they've been late responding the guards have on those screens. And it should be easy when you automate. Like you automate an ice, right? And like you just yell screen, like it's easy, or ice, like it doesn't matter. And then boom, the guard knows like, yeah, I don't even have to keep him in front of me. I'm just going to press up as hard as I can on the side of him. But they just haven't been super aggressive that way. So I don't know. I think they're going to have a problem with UNC. Like if Caleb Love goes off or RJ Davis goes off, they're going to shoot a bunch. I don't know if you can go under. They've really ran under on a lot of these top ball screens. And I think it's been close to okay. I don't know what your thoughts are. Like, what would say with that?
I don't know. I don't have the numbers on like different ball screen coverages, like synergies stuff. Like the numbers aren't that. They have some stuff for like NBA, but not college. So I don't have the numbers on that. But I guess they just haven't faced that many teams that have like an off the bounce like 3-point shooting guard. Like what's his name on Kentucky, Severe Wheeler. Like he's not really a threat like that. I don't think Minnesota had a guy like that, so they were okay doing that. But as you said, I mean, UNC is a different level with their guards that can shoot off the dribble. I will say those guys like Caleb Love can win you a game. I mean, he was hot the whole tournament, right? But he could also like shoot you out of a game if he's like 2 for 12 type of thing, you know?
Completely. He's been like that forever. That's why he's so fun. That's why people love him. But
that's the reason why he's still in college.
Yeah, exactly.
He's a dude that could shoot like that off
cool.
the dribble and would, if he was more efficient, he'd be in the NBA.
Yep. I watched them against UNC against IU, and Trey Galloway, really good defender, and he just took Caleb out of the game like early on. Caleb never got a feel for it. So I'm curious. I would love to see just a little more aggressiveness. At the same time, like, you don't have any other guards. Like, don't foul. Like, please don't foul, Doug. Like, it's going to be tough sledding. You know, if you see it with all these guys, they play such an important role, the starters. Jet goes out. That was bad. What game was that? He got in foul trouble.
What game?
Was that Kentucky?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. And, you know, they missed him dearly. Obviously, going to miss Hunter dearly when he gets in foul trouble, when he's off the court ever. And then Doug now, you know, being the main ball handler, they can't have him in foul trouble. So it's a funny situation where, like, now it opens them up to be with, unfortunately, Jalen's injury forces all these guys to be more aggressive and just play with confidence. And I think some of those shooting woes you'll see from Kobe from before, like, he just can't have them. And I think he knows it, and he knows, like, he's not going to get benched, or like he's the only option there. So I think they're looking good there, but defensively, I think they got to match that aggressiveness without fouling. But it's going to be. Yeah, go ahead.
I have a question for you. What do you think? What do you think of Terrence Williams? Because like he's kind of playing the 4 because, I mean, they don't really have many other good options.
Yeah.
But I mean, he's playing like a ton of minutes. I guess before I say anything, like, where are you at with him? Like, what do you think of his game? That sort of thing.
Yeah. So he's underwhelmed, like, efficiency wise, offensively, right? And I think I am impressed with his skills at times offensively. Like, he can pick his spots. If he can figure out how to pick his spots perfectly. I mean, he had this one catch, shot fake, dribble right between the legs left, and it had a left-hand layup finish on the opposite side. That was
against Minnesota, right?
Yeah, that was really impressive. And he made it look easy. And I think he has that ability, and he's had a knack. He had a knack for it last year, kind of picking his spots to be aggressive in spurts or just periodically, you know, alongside Hunter. I think he just hasn't shot well, and I think he's forced maybe some things. They made him play one-on-one a little too much, I think, at times. Like, he doesn't ever get anything in the flow. But, you know, he could play better offensively for sure. I think he's about the only guy, or at least he does it the most, that is looking at everyone else in the court offensively. He's the only guy. There was a play against Kentucky where Hunter had it in the post, and it was Isaiah Barnes' first 3. And Hunter had it in the post, and they went to double, and it was a light double. I think it was Wheeler, so like Hunter didn't even feel him. Yeah. And there was Terrence on the opposite wing, and then Isaiah in the opposite corner. And Isaiah's man was the only guy that could cover both of those. And the idea there is, like, send a double, and if Hunter skips it over, like, Isaiah's man will go cover whoever catches the ball, and then somebody behind him will come fill in, and they'll be fine. Well, Terrence is like, all right, screw that. And he went in, dove down, took out Isaiah's guy, because that guy now has to protect the layup, and boom, Isaiah's wide open. No one else in the team is doing that. Like, no one.
He's the best cutter for sure.
Oh, and that was Eli, right? Like, Eli last year was the only guy that could do that. Like, stuff that doesn't show up on the stat sheet, where you're going to get somebody else open because of something you do that no one's going to pay attention to. And it sucks because it doesn't show up on the stat sheet. But I think he's really useful from that standpoint. Like, he's the only one that'll set a flare screen. He's the only one that him and Jace will do high lows. High
low. Yeah, I was going to mention that. Yeah, he's a good passer from that area for sure.
Yeah. And he's just the only one that's really, like, taking in all the game. I think Kobe's getting there. I think Jet and Doug are just like, I'm Jet and Doug, I'm going to score. And, like, they're just kind of automatic right now in terms of who they are, which is fine because they're doing well with it. But he's necessary out there, I think, in that instance. But he's just, I mean, hey, hit 1.5 more shots a game, and we're probably speaking about him a little differently.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. I agree with you on pretty much everything you said. I think like one area that I'd like to see him improve at is, like, just be less of a hesitant shooter. Like, he catches the ball where there's like a long closeout, and he could just let it fly, and he should just shoot. And even if it doesn't go in as much as like he would want, like you just got to be a threat out there, especially like if it's coming off of a Hunter post up, like you just got to be that threat so that they know that they have to close out to you and they can't like sag off as much. So that's something I would definitely like to see from him offensively. And then like a little less of like the like one dribble to his left, pull up like 18-20 footer. Like it goes, he can make it, but it's just not that efficient of a shot. He's really the fifth option in the starting lineup. So like I get why he shoots it. He's like, man, like I haven't really touched the ball in a while. Like I need to like shoot a little bit. Like I could feel that through him. So like I get why he's doing it. It's just not a great shot. But I mean, like Phil, you made a great point with like the cutting and the flare screens. Like he is the only guy who's doing that stuff consistently. Like he feels the small spaces of the defense. I mean, on offense, like really well.
Yeah, I mean, I really do like his left-leaning fadeaway. Like, I really do think that he's pretty good at it in terms of like skill. I don't know where it's at efficiency-wise, but they just like, it just always comes from a one-on-one. Like, it's never from like, he doesn't really get it in great spots. So that's to his disadvantage. So I won't knock him too much for that. And, you know, maybe he could take the Draymond approach where Draymond's not making that play at all. He's gonna automatically like kick it to a guy like Doug and go set a screen and pop and roll and then find his offense that way. But I mean, this is the first time Terrence has been in major minutes in terms of this role. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see that. But yeah, if he's playing one-on-one all the time, I just don't think he will. I think he's too smart for that. And I don't think that's what he wants to do. But
yeah,
I think he's just really smart. And overall, like you said, I think there was even one possession where Hummel was calling their games and Hummel gets this like a certain tone where you're like, oh man, Hummel really thinks this guy's dumb. And it was because Terrence wouldn't shoot it. And he's like, you got to shoot the ball there. And Terrence passed it up. He was wide open and he was so right. But then it was funny enough because this happens to Terrence all the time where he will pass up a shot and then he's still open by the time it comes back to him and shoots it and makes it. And he's like, well, there you go. Then he shot it. But he has to be a threat. Like this goes with me and Doug. Like I'm fine with him shooting threes with guys going under the screen because you have to be a threat. As soon as you make yourself a weakness, then the teams are just going to exploit you.
Yeah, for sure. Do you remember what game that was that he did? I don't remember how much, because like he's one of the few that I like. I listen to everything. He's like such a good commentator, man, and he's pretty new at it. And I mean, he adds so much insight. Like everything he says, I'm like, yep, like he knows the team really well, even though he doesn't cover them regularly. Like, yeah, he's super impressive. I guess I don't remember that game, but that play doesn't surprise me at all. Like he passes up good threes to either take like a more difficult shot, like he'll like dribble once or twice and then pull it, or he'll get it back and he'll be open. Like he'll still be open. But yeah, I mean, especially like how often they play through Hunter, like having 4 guys on the court who can shoot from the perimeter, it just helps so much, like with spacing and stuff on his post ups and like the ability to help off of guys. Because last year they just really didn't have that with how much like Musa was playing.
No, Musa was just poor Musa. Like he just didn't understand it. Those two guys just couldn't play together on the same court. Like Musa was too new. Maybe you could figure it in a couple years, but it just wasn't a good situation. So I was excited when, Terrence was looking like the 4-man. But I want to ask you about Joey Baker and where he can fit in here. And I think, you guys mentioned it too. His numbers on defense are good. I'm so much less worried about his defense, especially at the 4-man spot. Like him guarding, he's pretty active guarding ball screens. And I think he's maybe one of the best ones to do it. But offensively, early on, it looked like he was going to be a part of the offense and just be a gunner all year and be perfect. And then that's gone away. Like whether Juwan's playing Cheddar more minutes or they're just not running enough sets to get Joey open, like this Spain action that I really didn't like. Certain things, but like, I guess I don't know exactly what my question is, but where can he fit in? Like where do you see him fitting in? Does he deserve more minutes?
I mean, I think he should play probably the most for like a wing off the bench, right? Like you have to have a guy who plays for Hunter for like the 5 to 8 minutes. Yeah, I think he could play the 3. I think the 4 is probably his best position, but he could probably play the 3 or the 4. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think he should play the most minutes of like a wing off the bench. I'm definitely not as high on his defense as you are.
That's fair.
I think, I mean, he had like hip surgery and he definitely wasn't known for his defense at Duke. Like, I think what's like for some, like, there's some closeouts that stand out in my mind where this dude just like looked like a turnstile. Like he just got blown by a little too much. I honestly think that's probably what's limiting his minutes more than anything. I agree with you that they should involve him more. Like because he is such a good shooter, like he's not in the game for his defense. Like get him as many shots as you can when he's on the court, especially if he's playing with a bunch of bench guys. Like run sets for him. Dylan mentioned in the podcast I did with him, like the double ball screen they do where like he'll pop out for three and then like the big will roll to the basket. Like that's a good way to put pressure and get him a look. I like using him as like the single side guy and pick and roll so that guys like defenders on the weak side have to choose whether, tag off him and stay with the roller or get back out and prevent him from getting a catch and shoot three. So I like that. And they run some like stagger stuff where like he'll be the first screener and like he'll screen down for a guy coming from the corner, and then someone will like cut around and screen for him, so he'll get a three. So they have some stuff in the playbook for him. It just for whatever reason like he hasn't gotten as many attempts as probably he should, because I mean he's 10 for 21, so like a tiny sample, but I mean that's over 47%. So you should be, that guy's on the court to shoot, so you got to get him as many looks as possible when he's on the court. And I honestly think another way to help him get more looks would be to play him with the starters. So like if he was the first guy, like they have their rotation where the bench guys come in all at the same time, but if they were to stagger it a little more so that he's like the first one in and he's playing with like the other four starters, like whoever he's coming in for, whether that be like Kobe or Jet or whoever, I think he'll get a lot more looks that way, but just by playing with Hunter and Doug with that lineup. So I think it's another way of utilizing him better.
I say that Jalen's injury is going to force Jawan to limit rotations, and then he'll find a way to like bring in Terrace, Isaiah, and Cheddar off the bench at the same time. But that's fine. I mean, I think go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, I agree with everything you said about that earlier. It's just like I don't think he knows who he wants to play, so he's just like playing all these dudes to try to figure it out.
That's fair. Yeah. I think, but it's a question mark. Like him, it's Joey and Cheddar and Terrence. Like Joey and Cheddar, I think he wants to play the most minutes, and Terrace is like mostly because he's the 5, and Hunter's got to get some rest.
He's got to play.
And Isaiah can bring a spark of energy, so he thinks, off the bench. And so, but the question mark is like really like, okay, how are we going to play? Maybe they do play Joey more at the 3 and he spots minutes there, which I wouldn't mind. And from one TV timeout to the other, especially if you got a lineup that another opposing team lineup that works well with. But I wanted to ask you about that double screen. So one, just how teams have been playing Michigan on ball screen defense in general, but I really hated what they were doing against Virginia. They pulled that out against Virginia, and they started a double ball screen, and Joey would start it, and whoever it was is coming off the left wing going right towards the middle, and then Hunter was rolling, and like there was enough. They were so close. Joey's man is so close enough to at least get like that early window where maybe someone can fit it in, so he can kind of be there for that, and then. If you're going to hard hedge, then you're forcing the point guard all the way around. So then you can get back in time to your man and somebody else from the opposite side or like the opposite corner, whatever. Like there's enough time for rotations. And I'm like, if you just put Joey all the way in the corner, like that's too much spacing for a guy like Joey. Now you can shoot over anybody. So I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good
like
point.
It. Like, is it working? I hated it when they rolled it out.
Yeah. I think that may have been. I don't know if you're saying in general or just that Virginia game. I mean, Virginia is a really good defensive team, right? And like. They hedge ball screens like that. I mean, Michigan scored like really well in the first half of that game. It was really they're up by double figures in the first half or at halftime. So I don't think offense was necessarily like the issue in the first half. The second half was a little bit different story. But I mean that's a really good defensive team. So it may have been a little bit more of that. But I agree with what you're saying about like putting Joey in the other corner. Because like you said, just more space, like that guy has to cover, his defender has to cover. So I see validity in doing that. And it's not like Michigan like gets the ball to the roll man very much. Like Hunter is like he's a great offensive player, but he's not like a great roller.
He doesn't have gravity.
He just
like he rolls. It's odd.
He rolls pretty slowly. So like he's a good like short roller, right? Where he can make some passes and he has like that flip shot. But he kind of rolls slowly, and he's obviously not an above the rim finisher, even though he's really big. So he's not like a big target in that way.
What's shocking now that you say that, like he has all of the basketball wit to slip more screens, and he does it.
Yeah, that's a good point.
he did a little bit. He actually did against Virginia, and he had a short roll, and there was one in particular where it worked perfectly.
Yeah,
and
that's a good point, because they were hedging so hard. That's another reason why you
he
slipped,
was like, all
right?
And then, but he doesn't do it very often, which is interesting. I don't know why. I think you could. I think he's smart enough to mix it up like that. So I don't know. Maybe it's just his call. Maybe he likes setting those screens and being, a little more lumbering that way. But yeah,
physical. Yeah, I don't know.
I need to call the coaching staff. So many opinions.
Yeah, you got a contact.
Yeah,
dude, they're so tight-lipped over there, man.
Man,
like, it's hard to get anything.
Yeah. I hear. Yeah, I mean, Sadi's been very gracious this time. Hunter, came on the pod. I haven't had anybody else on, but yeah, they've seemed like pretty tight-lipped. A lot of stress going on. That's the coaching game.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I mean, if you get players, like Hunter has his own podcast, I think. So like he'll talk and like, he'll give quotes and stuff. But yeah, like the coaches, like if you try to get anything like schematically or like they're real tight-lipped over there.
Yeah, Beeline was the same way, man. I mean, he was nuts about it. But to me,
would he tell you guys like specifically like not to say stuff? Like I feel like as his tenure went on, because I would learn shit just from listening to him.
Yeah.
Like as press conferences went on, I mean, I'm sure you didn't listen to those, but he would say stuff more schematically. But early on, I think he was more tight-lipped. But did he give you guys stuff like don't say anything to the media, like be neutral, like that sort of stuff?
Yeah, kind of. Now our media training was more of like, don't ruffle feathers, don't say anything that you didn't like, blah blah blah. Be a robot. Yeah. It was like, and then a lot of us weren't even smart enough to talk about the scheme. So, but sometimes I would mention like, yeah, obviously it was blatant that I was super denying Taylor Battle all game. Like, yeah, that was our strategy. Like that, like go beat it. I guess defensively, I would talk about my strategy because I wasn't worried about that. But offensively, yeah, like that was tight-lipped. Like you don't talk about it. And I mean, his transfer rule was, you can't transfer anywhere in the Big Ten, and you can't transfer anywhere who we play in the next 2 years. And I actually wrote about it, a long form opinion on it like years ago about why I thought that was dumb. And you thinking that you're going to sell the secrets. And it's like, dude, like, especially with Beeline's offense, you knew what was coming. Like you could look at all the plays, but there's 70 different variations of what's going to happen. So good luck stopping the execution of it. Like a ball screen is a ball screen. It's been ran for years, and it's why it's the focal point of all offenses across the world. It is what it is. And like, okay, now go stop it. So like, it's odd that these coaches get so stressed out about it. They think they've like cracked the code on things, and then no, you just regurgitated a play from over there. It's pretty funny. I don't know. It's an interesting world to navigate.
Definitely a different time too. Because if a coach had that policy now, I mean, they would get crushed in like you know what I mean? Like limiting where people transfer and all. It's like a completely different, like, players can go wherever they want now, and that sort of thing. Yeah. But I mean, that was pretty public, like that he had that where, he didn't want you to transfer to a Big Ten school or like a team you were going to play in the non-conference the next year. Yeah. I think he was probably pretty late on that too, even like being more flexible with that sort of thing.
It was funny. I even asked Spike and Max BFL. Max BFL went to IU, and Spike Albrecht went to Purdue. And I asked him after, when I was writing this thing, like, all right, tell me, like, be honest, because I could write this a very different way. What advice did you give about the offense? And they're like, dude, the coaches watched so much film on Beeline already. Like they know exactly what's going on. And a lot of it's like, well, what are they doing now? And so that's different than what they were doing 2 months ago, especially we would throw that in offensively, like what our common sets were. And then at that point too, like, it's just a point guard heavy offense nowadays. Like Beeline was running so much ball screen stuff. So basically both of them were like, I mean, I gave some pointers on like what these plays are called, like that would help. But like, even then Michigan still beat Purdue and IU in some of those games. So it really didn't.
I remember that.
Yeah. It's funny. So Juwan's been tense, huh? Is that what you've seen?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like, just because I have the podcast, I sometimes try to listen to like the post-game press conferences to see if there's anything I missed, if he'll give any information. He doesn't say anything. Those press conferences are worthless. I don't know if it's because he doesn't trust the media or like he doesn't get good questions. He definitely doesn't get great questions. Like because like if you ask a specific question that will like elicit like a schematic response, like sometimes you get it. Like, like I'm not like a huge NFL guy, but like Bill Belichick, is known for like not giving anything away. But if you ask him something like smart that's schematic, like he'll actually answer you.
Yeah.
I wonder how he would respond if you gave him like a good question. But yeah, he doesn't really get those.
I was watching one of the press conferences, and I don't remember who it was, and I wasn't going to call him out anyways, but the question, he got kind of nervous, and he was like, what are you looking for, when you put in guys off the bench? And I think what he wanted to ask was, why are you subbing in 4 guys at a time, and you see the offense decline and the game swing momentum? That's a valid question. That's something Juwan
for sure
can answer. But he asked, what are you looking for guys off the bench? And Juwan just laughed. He was like, kind of a little bit of an a-hole laugh, but it was like, what do you mean? Like, play hard? I don't know.
Right. Make
like,
shots, like defend. Yeah, exactly. Like, what are you supposed
winning?
to say to a question like that?
Yeah, I felt bad, but yeah, it was
honestly, he's like, I've never asked a question in a press conference before, but like I feel like they just by how he answers some things, like they might be like intimidated by him, like he's played in the NBA for 15 years. He kind of like does that sort of thing when he responds sometimes. So it's like, yeah, it's hard to ask questions. I can imagine.
He doesn't come in there with a smile.
It.
He's a big figure, and he doesn't come in there with a smile. So he's definitely got to be intimidating. I mean, you'll start rattling off your words and forgetting what you're going to ask, and just like,
yeah, exactly.
All right, Will, go ahead, and you're like, oh, damn.
Yeah, exactly. I should probably give them more of a pass, honestly, on the questions, because it's probably much harder than I think it is.
You should come up with like oral history of press conference questions and just interview everyone and be like, what was your most pressure packed? Because people don't understand it. I mean, there's pressure in everything in life, and there's got to be some. I've heard some people talk about like hilarious stories, or like, I just completely misread the question I had on my own notepad. It was like,
really, yeah.
So yeah, it's a nerve-wracking. So let's give them some credit.
Yeah. I'm with you on that.
I don't know if I got too much to talk about, honestly. I mean, we talked about the bench, covered Doug, Joey, Terrence, Hunter. Now, okay, real quick, and I want to get into a couple questions, quick ones I had for you.
Sure.
And then some with Minnesota, or sorry, UNC game. But okay, let's go back to the offense. I know you don't think the offense is the problem, but let's talk about end of game offense, where they have had some issues. And I know Jalen had some problems with turnovers before, and like figuring out where they're going to turn to in the last 2 minutes. It's always the most nerve-wracking time. And it's always when the offense tightens up and butts get clenched and all that stuff. Why don't they run more stuff for Jet out of ball screens in the last 2 minutes? Like, why is it that we always think that, all right, point guard and big man, let's bring it back out and run the shot clock, get to 15 seconds and run it that way? Like, why don't we give it to Jet more? I don't understand fully that.
Yeah. So what game has been like down to the wire like that? Besides, it was Virginia, right? Like that's the only game that really came down to those late possessions.
Closing out Michigan or Eastern Michigan, there was a couple.
Oh yeah, I guess that's true. And I guess the Ohio game went to overtime too. So there had to have been possessions. Honestly, that game is like a blur. I don't really remember what all the details of that.
You said that Ohio.
It went to overtime. So I was just like, it had to have been close at some point, right? Didn't they like kind of lose it late? Because there wasn't that crazy play where the ball got like thrown off the backboard on the inbounds. I'd never seen that before.
No, It was the most anticlimactic game time last second shot I've ever seen.
Layup. Yeah.
It was like,
that was crazy.
Looking around like, what the hell? Yeah.
So
crazy stuff.
To answer your question, so the last play of the game against Virginia, they ran like pistol basically, where they were trying to get a dribble handoff for Jet, and it like kind of looked like he got fouled, kind of didn't. I was fine that they didn't call it or anything like that, but so they did run that one for him. I know the play you're talking about where it was like around a minute left and they ran a ball screen for Jalen and he ended up turning it over, right? Is that what you're thinking of? And then Jet intentionally fouled him or whatever they called, a clear path. I forget, but it was like it was a flagrant, or they got 2 free throws in the ball, basically ended the game. So yeah, I mean, you can question the play call for sure. I do think late in the game you want to like keep it pretty simple just to try to avoid like a turnover or that sort of thing, and like control the kind of shot you're getting. I mean, I think Hunter should probably touch it in most cases too. Right. But when you're rushed, it's kind of hard sometimes to run like a post up, because those just take time. So yeah, I mean, I agree with you. They could run some more stuff for Jet. On that play, I will say he should have been spaced towards the corner, but he was like in the slot, and that made the guy, they run a pack line, right? So it it was much easier for his guy to help and recover, and that's why he was able to get the steal. So that was like kind of on him a little bit, but I mean that wasn't him with the ball. But yeah, I mean he's a huge threat, shooting obviously, like off the catch, off the bounce, off dribble handoff. So yeah, I mean I agree with you. Having the ball in his hands is definitely a good thing if you don't have the time for like Hunter to touch it in the post.
Yeah, you mentioned his passing earlier. I mean, he's just been so impressive with his decision making, and even when he gets in a tough spot where he's got to take a tough shot, like the runners he's hit, I don't know if there's a shot or like if that's a ticking time bomb eventually, but like he's just a shot maker and in high pressure situations when things break down, and then a really good passer, and especially so tall, and you run these screens and he gets to their free throw line. And I mean, like, good luck to any big man guarding deciding what two you're going to stop there. So I don't know. I hope we do see more of that, but he's got to stay in the game, and I hope he can demand the ball more in that sense. I know they run a lot of good sets for him, but to train that transitions to my next question I have for you. From an X's and O's standpoint, what set have you really enjoyed? Because I there's this one like long set where it's a handoff and then a pin down, another handoff. But I mean, things that I did not see them do at all last year. I just wasn't happy with any of their sets last year. So what's something you really enjoyed watching them, or a couple things that maybe was surprised you or you want to see them continue in terms of set offense?
The set that you alluded to is definitely my favorite one, which is like, it's called like Zoom action. I don't know if you've seen that, or like Chicago action. Other people call it like the NBA, where it's like a pin down into a dribble handoff, but they do it on both sides. Yeah. So like they'll enter it into the elbow, dribble handoff, pin down for one guy on one side, dribble handoff, then he'll hand it off to a guy coming from a pin down on the other side who then gets a ball screen. Yeah, that's probably my favorite action. So it's basically like double Zoom is like how I would call it, or like so both guys are coming off pin downs and then get a handoff, hand it off to the other guy, comes off a ball screen. And they usually do that for Jet, or I think only have done it for Jet and Kobe. And obviously Kobe's a lefty, so they'll get him going to his left, or they'll run it for Jet to go to his right. It just gives you an advantage getting downhill, right? Like there's just so many things that the defense has to communicate that cause a lot of confusion. Yeah, I really like that set. And then a post-up set that they run, like super popular in the NBA. Like almost every NBA team with a post-up guy ran it like 5 to 10 years ago, which makes sense because Juwan has that NBA background. But it's just called motion weak, where basically the ball gets swung from one side to the other, and then there's a cross screen in the paint for Hunter to get a touch on the left block. Is essentially what you're looking for. And like the point guard will run through the paint, like he'll go through, and then the ball gets swung to him, and he'll be the one that enters it into the post. So those are two of my favorites.
So yeah, I've been really impressed with their sets and their ability to run them efficiently and get in them quick. I think that was a big focus for them this summer, particularly because they really tried to hammer that motion last year, and it didn't fit the team super great. And I think this year, this team is more capable to run sets efficiently, but also have that motion. I think that, a guy like Doug can just be what Juwan wanted from the very get-go with his offense, and just like, all right, let's go. Like, just bring it up and like get into the offense and move it, and then we'll figure it out from there. So it'll be interesting to see how that changes as the year goes on. Like if they give Doug more of a leash that way, it'll just kind of depend on his performance. But moving ahead to UNC, we touched on it a little bit with UNC's guards. You got Armand Bacot. I'm really looking at that matchup because there was a lot of trash talking from Hunter's end with the Shibwe matchup. And Shibwe, I don't know if it was intimidation or just great defense or both, but Hunter did not have an efficient game. And really, his most aggressive post-ups were when Shibwe was out. So I'm interested to see how he responds against a guy like Bacot. I think he's going to have to come out. I think he should be attacking Bacot. Like he should have been attacking Shibwe right at the get-go, shooting jumpers and getting post-ups from 15, 17 feet. That's kind of my focus, to preface this long-winded question. What do you want to see from them in regards to anything? X's and O's, individual standpoint. Sure. What defense? What do you think is going to be a big focus or two for them against UNC?
Yeah, so the first things you think of when you think of UNC are like Carolina break, right? They play with fast tempo, rim running. That's like a staple. You gotta. I mean, the coaches obviously know that, and I'm interested to see how they play in transition defense, especially. And then historically, like UNC is a really, really good offensive rebounding team. This year's team is actually just average. But I mean, Baycott is obviously huge, and I think he's probably the biggest concern on the glass, keeping him off the glass. But they play Pete Nance at the power forward, and he's kind of like, he's tall, but he's slender. So I don't think he crashes as much. So that might be why they're not as good as they are have historically been offensive rebounding. But that's got to be an emphasis too. And then, the matchup between Baycott and Dickinson. I mean, they know each other super well. They're both team takeover guys, like the DMV AAU team. So that's like a big time matchup. And did they play his freshman year? I want to say they did. Hunter's freshman year. I think they played at UNC. I can't remember how the matchup went
either. Yeah.
I think they played. I think Michigan got killed. Maybe I'm wrong. It might have been the year before Hunter got there. But anyway, that's a big time matchup. And that'd be huge if Dickinson can kind of impose his will on another like big post, high level defender in Baycott. And then, like we talked about it earlier, like the guys who could shoot off the dribble, RJ Davis and Caleb Love, both of them are actually under 30% on threes, but you don't want a chance at giving them like a bunch of open looks. So how like Doug and Kobe chase those guys around on the perimeter, I'll definitely be watching for that too.
Yeah, you got to treat them like they're 45% three-point shooters. Like you got to stay attached because as soon as they get going, they're momentum guys. With Baycott, it's funny watching him. I think he's really good, and I think he's a very good player on a good team, and he can be like that center for a national champion. But there's so many things where I'm like, dude, this dude is slow, like, and he'll foul. Like, I'm like, why is this guy who I think is supposed to be smart and like the anchor for your defense slapping at your hands? And I think Hunter can give him fits. I don't think he's going to push Hunter out of the post as much as Sheboy can, but I say that and like you've seen Foreman just kind of push Hunter out and he's comfortable. Like he's like, all right, fine, I'll catch it at 15. But I think if you were really focused on attacking Baycott, I think you can get him in foul trouble. And then I don't know who they have to back up at that point. Are they playing Nance at the 5 or they got somebody else coming in?
No, I don't think they would go with him. I mean, he does play some 5, like small ball 5, but I mean, he can't guard Hunter. He's like real thin. To correct what I said before, so Baycott and Dickinson, they played last year. That was the game where Michigan got blown out. It was like early in the non-conference last year. Yeah. Dickinson was in foul trouble most of the game. He played 17 minutes and only scored 4 points, 2 of 4 shooting. So I mean, he's definitely going to be rearing up to play much better in the rematch.
That box score right on his locker, like look what you did last year.
Yeah, exactly. I'd forgotten it was last year. It feels like a long time ago.
I know. Yeah, I don't even like recognize the beginning of that year last year because I just remember
they got killed in that game.
Yeah, just trying to like talk everyone off the ledge last year for their start because it's like this isn't the year before. Like these are all young guys. Like give them a break. They're not as good as they were ranked. Like it's just what happens in college basketball. But yeah, I just like blacked all that beginning part out because it was like a totally different team. And here,
dude, that's what me and Dylan had to do on the podcast all last year. Like they were in the top 30 like the whole year, and people were basically treating it like this was like, are they gonna make the NIT? Like this team is terrible. You know what I mean? It's like, the overreactions. But I mean, but when it's a new young team, you got to expect growing pains, right? It's not gonna be amazing from the jump.
Yep. And it's going to be the same, I think, going forward with this team and just figuring out their identity without Jalen and then a different rotation and whatnot. I do think they still have the pieces to figure it all out. So I'm going to give them a little more patience. I mean, I'll continually give them patience until like they get to a losing record or something in the Big Ten and have like a bad start. But I think they have it. Like, and at the end, like you got Hunter Dickinson, so you can always figure out a way. So who knows? It's going to come down to defense. I don't know. You have any closing thoughts on Michigan basketball coming up?
No, not really. I think we covered a lot of stuff.
We did good.
Yeah, this is a good conversation. And I mean, I'm going to keep watching. As you said, like they have a baseline. If you have Hunter Dickinson, your offense is going to be pretty good, and that's going to keep you in a lot of games or winning a good amount of games. So ride him, figure the rest out, keep Jet going on offense, figure some things out defensively, and they should be pretty solid.
Yep, it's all nice. It's all right there within grass, so it is nice. Eric, I appreciate you coming on. This was awesome. I'm going to have you on again, break down when we get maybe in the middle of the Big Ten or something. And break down the X's and O's. Yeah, this is really great. I appreciate you.
Yeah, of course, man. Welcome to come on anytime.